Hey, so what's up, guys? Welcome back to a new session in this lecture series. A new day, a new beginning, and let's discuss today drugs for constipation. It's again CBL for your better understanding of drugs related to constipation, and the content will be mostly appropriate for undergraduate medical students. So let's start discussing these drugs and scenarios. So it's very difficult to define constipation as such because training, irregular stool habits, formation of hard stools, sensation of incomplete bowel evacuation, and medically it should be less than 3 times a week. Opening up less than 3 times a week should be called as something which relates to constipation. But then again, it all depends upon the culture in which the patient, I mean not patient, I should say, the person is living in. uh, the food habits the person is going for, the lifestyle the person is having, and so on, that decides whether the person is really having a constipation or not. Anyway, if you want to look at the occurrence of this disease, then it can be a short episode of constipation, once in a lifetime episode, and many of us might have got this kind of a constipation in our lifetime, maybe a short episode. But usually, what concerns is a long term constipation that definitely has issues with quality of life, or maybe relate to few diseases of the colon. Where the constipation episodes keep on coming and they just do not go. Of course, there are few associated symptoms of constipation like abdominal pain, maybe psychiatric problems, maybe other kinds of pain or discomfort that also occurs when you talk of long term constipation, or even short term constipations. People who are not usually prone to constipation, but when they get these short term episodes of constipation, they might suffer from one or a few of these symptoms. So there are a lot of causes for constipation. Now we need to look at the causes because there's what I say is lifestyle modification that has to be done for these patients of constipation. So the most important would be decrease in fiber intake, which is most common. I mean, eating less of vegetable food, eating less of organic food, eating more of non-vegetarian food, red meat, and so on. So less fiber intake, decrease liquid intake, especially becomes more commoner in elderly and a newborn. Actually, supposed to we are supposed to drink around 8 glasses of water, 250 ml each, but then usually we don't go for that, and usually we suffer from constipation. I mean, the persons suffer from constipation, not we. Sorry. Then of course, old age, newborns, children, yeah, they suffer from constipation more than the adult human beings. The reason being, change in milk diet or lack of training, especially when you talk of children. So there's a lot of problem in training in this context. A fear of closed spaces that occurs especially with children, and conflict of time. The time has to be distributed between when they want to eat, when they want to sleep, and when they want to have their bowels cleared. So if there's any conflict in between this, then the thing what happens is that they just try to ignore the urge to defecate, and that's the issue when it turns up to be a patient of constipation. Of course, less exercise, bedridden individuals, that's again an issue with lifestyle that also relates to constipation in one way or the other. Systemic illnesses, especially hypothyroidism, diabetes mellitus in late stages, uremia, pregnancy, because pregnancy relates to a lot of hormones, especially progesterone, that relaxes most of the bowel peristalsis, and a few other electrolyte imbalances in potassium and calcium might give rise to constipation. Neurologically, yes, stroke, coma, depression, anxiety, that might be related to constipation. Of course, most of that, when you talk of neurology, then it mostly the bedridden individuals, so no exercise, less food, less fluids as such, because they are ignored for a very long time, and so on. So less of care, so constipation and so on. A few medications that can lead to constipation would be CCBs, that is calcium channel blocker. Calcium is required for propulsion and peristalsis, so block it with help of drugs, so constipation becomes one of the side effects. Morphine and its congeners, so especially not morphine to that extent, but morphine, yes, causes constipation, but we'll use it in hospital setting. But outside the hospital setting would be codeine, and that is what people usually take in, so that might lead to constipation. A few heavy metals like iron, aluminum can lead to constipation. Anticholinergic drugs, yes, cholinergic system is supposed to be the ones which will help in rest and digest, so block it with anticholinergic drugs leads to constipation. Intestinal, anal and rectal conditions, of course, these have a major role to play, especially when you talk of chronic constipation. So any anal conditions, especially painful ones like anal fissure, can give rise to constipation. Thrombosed hemorrhoids, because that then it becomes painful, not the usual one, so then it becomes a case of constipation, because the moment you try to defecate it becomes painful, so people try to ignore or just try to hold on with the urge to defecate, and that leads to constipation as a vicious cycle. A few cancers of bowel can presenting symptoms can be alternating diarrhea and constipation. Inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndromes, obstructions of the intestine can present as constipation. Of course, obstruction can be total or subtotal, whatever it might be, complete or incomplete. So depending on what kind of constipation, obstruction of the bowels the person is suffering from, you need to ask those specific questions. But especially, just don't ask about if he is able to pass the stools. You need to also ask about if he is able to even pass wind. So then that becomes a complete story when you want to talk about full-blown obstruction of the intestine and so on. So these are few, of course, few causes that should raise alarm when you think of constipation and want to relate it to the causes. A few of these causes are definitely related to lifestyle, but then you need to look at constipation also through the angle of pathology, where it can be a symptom of underlying disease. So, as far as management of constipation is concerned, the best way for a general practitioner would be treat the underlying cause. You need to know whether it's a functional cause or there is a pathology. You need to identify it depending upon type of constipation, symptoms, and so on, and definitely treat it if it is treatable. If it is treatable, right? Alteration of lifestyle. Yeah, you need to be more active, more fiber diet, more exercise, lead a healthy lifestyle. A few non-pharmacological methods are involved in management of constipation. We'll come to those. Would be enemas, tap water enemas, and so on, which are for acute episodes of constipation, for bedridden individuals, or for people in hospitals, or people with chronic constipation with acute episodes in between. You want to relieve it there and then this non-pharmacological methods, OTC products help, and of course drugs are there for management of constipation. As far as classification of drugs is concerned, and they are classified as laxatives and purgatives. Laxatives, they help in forming soft stools, and they are milder in action. So basically they will be used for people with women with pregnancy, because that's one of the times when people suffer from constipation, women suffer from constipation, and you cannot give a very hard drug which can increase peristalsis of the intestine and in turn also stimulate contractions of the uterus. So you want to use a soft drug which will be milder in action, helps in forming soft stools. Of course, elderly, post-operative cases, children, and short-term, mild to moderate constipations, you want to use a laxative, and that's where all these drugs are used. But then sometimes what happens is fecal impaction, or it also leads to, sometimes it's a very strong constipation. So in those cases, not strong, it will severe constipation, sorry, you want to use a purgative. That's a drug which will cause watery diarrhea, so watery stools, strong action on the intestines, in inducing lot of peristalsis and so on. Now they are used only for short term, basically to just relieve patients out of acute episodes of constipation whenever there is any condition of that sort. So laxatives on one side, purgatives with a stronger action on the other side. Now these are all the drugs that are used for constipation. So we have bulk laxatives, bran, isabgula, few examples. We'll come to these drugs. We have stool softeners with like Tocusets and liquid paraffin. We have osmotic purgatives. And we have magnesium salts and lactulose. We have 5-HT4 agonist drugs. A recent addition nowadays is tegaseroid. And we have fixed drugs purgative. We do not use this drug nowadays in practice to that extent. So it's castor oil. It's a age-old medication for constipation. And then we also have stimulant purgatives like bisacodyl, which are used for bowel preparations and so on in medicine. So roughly what you can see from this classification is that a few drugs are milder in action, laxatives, where a few are more aggressive in action, which are purgatives in nature. A few ones like castor oil, we don't use it usually because they are very, very strong in action and with a lot of side effects. So here is a case of a 45-year-old obese executive who is leading a sedentary lifestyle and suffers from short episodes of constipation for many years now. Right? Very typical case of a person who has episodes of constipation. He likes to eat fast food, less fiber almost daily, and he has no other symptoms. After evaluation of the patient, he was diagnosed to have functional constipation. Of course, there is nothing pathology inside, but it's a case of functional constipation. So case 2 is a 45-year-old obese executive leading a sedentary lifestyle, suffered from anal fissure, something different, right? It is almost the same as case 1, but here there is a painful anal fissure. He is suffering from almost 1 month for now. He suffers from short episodes of constipation leading to excessive straining and hard stools, and also has an anal fissure. There was that has led to causation of anal fissure. If you go back and want to do surgery, then you know hard stool is one of the primary factors in causing the injury to the anal mucosa, and that is what causes anal fissure. It's a very painful condition. Pain and bleeding occurs while he passes feces, and that's a vicious circle. So he is trying to ignore the urge to defecate, and that has led to constipation. He likes to eat fast food almost daily. He has no other medical and surgical problems. So here is a case again of an executive with anal fissure, and which has led to constipation. And then we had the case 1 in which that was a functional constipation. Two cases almost similar, but one has a pathology in the anus that is leading to constipation, and the first one was of course executive with a functional constipation to lead. If you want to look at the treatment for this condition, the best treatment is treat the primary cause, right? You want to give this patient a lot of bulk laxatives. We will come to this, like bran, isabgula, methyl cellulose. You want to give this patient adequate water to drink, because then less water, maybe his executive is just forgetting to drink water, maybe sitting in offices which are air conditioned, climate control and so on, so you don't feel like drinking water throughout the day. Lifestyle modifications, you want this patient to eat more of vegetable diet, more of fiber diet. You want him to exercise daily, and then you want to evaluate the patient after 7 to almost around a week's time, because these drugs which you will give, this isabgula, bran, whatever you want to give, will require almost 2 to 3 days for action. Now coming to the drug part of this entire scenario is the bulk laxative. We talked about bran, isabgula. What are these? These are bulk laxatives. These are examples of bulk laxatives. Laxative, of course, I told you, are drugs with milder action. What are these drugs? These are unabsorbed complex carbohydrates. So these carbohydrates are not absorbed, but they are complex in origin. And that's why they remain inside the intestine, and they just increase the bulk content of the feces that stimulates the intestine to have a lot of peristalsis, and that's why the patient feels like that he should be evacuating the bowel. So these are uncomplex carbohydrates which increase volume of stools. They also to extend swell in action, they retain water, they absorb water, try to keep water within the intestine, adds to the bulk. They definitely stimulate intestinal peristalsis, and they should be knowing that they help in formation of soft, well-formed stool. So it's not diarrhea; it's a well-formed stool, but you require some time. You require at least 3 days for their action to come. You can of course want to take these medications, bulk laxatives, with water or warm milk. Do not give it in patients of any intestinal obstruction. No, that's a contraindication for their use. Uh, you require to take it in large amounts, so it may not be of, I should say, something which is great for kids, because they won't like it anyway. Nowadays we have bulk laxatives which are flavored, so shouldn't be an issue. But then again, the quantity that is required maybe more than what the children can usually take in. Taste is a issue, of course. Now there are various brands I already informed, but anyway, it's not something which is great to take when it comes to taste. um, the next in the line, of course, are softeners. So we talked about bulk laxative. Alternative to bulk laxatives can be stool softeners. An example of that is Docusets. Docuset has a detergent action. It tries to help in penetration. When it helps water to penetrate into hard feces, and it helps in softening of the stools. It retains more water in the intestinal lumen. So we can use this drug in case number one. So person with functional constipation, I mean, my personal thing would be, I would be giving the patient, I should say, a bulk laxative like Isabgula, Bran maybe, to drink. One sachet, it comes in a sachet, so one sachet, pour in a glass of water or warm milk at night time, and his functional constipation should be freed by almost the third day. But then again, if you want to use some other drug, then the stool softeners can be alternative. So for case number one, where we have persons with functional constipation, you can also use a stool softener like Docuset. 1 to 200 milligrams per day of Docuset should be okay for the patients as an alternative to bulk laxatives. So we had bulk laxatives as well as stool softeners, which will be having their actions when you talk in terms of functional constipation. That is what you need to remember. We also have liquid paraffin, which is also a stool softener, which is alternative to Docuset. It's a hydrocarbon in origin. Hydrocarbons usually come from petroleum products, so one of that happens to be liquid paraffin. It lubricates the hard stools. Now if you happen to be in the chemistry lab, you will always see those white bottles on which it is written as liquid paraffin. If you haven't seen that, you can of course see it. Of course, you can also see it in biochemistry labs for people who are into research field, or especially phase 1 MBBS students can always want to see liquid paraffin in biochemistry labs. Anyway, it's a lubricant, so it will try to lubricate the hard stools. It's safe in pregnancy and lactation. As it's a lubricant, as hydrocarbon, you are taking it inside, so maybe absorption of few other substances, especially substances which are lipid soluble, will not be absorbed because they will be carried along with liquid paraffin down the intestine. So you need to watch for malabsorption of these lipid soluble substances, especially if you are taking liquid paraffin for a very long time. It's not something that you take it at once and you will have the problem. No, if you're taking it for a very long time, 2-3 months continuously, maybe a few deficiencies can come up. Of course, cosmetic problems, yes, because liquid paraffin is a lubricant to start with, so it can leak through the anus and can stain the clothes. Now personally, I haven't prescribe liquid paraffin to any individual, so don't know about that, but theory says that, so need to remember about this. Of course, there will be taste issues with liquid paraffin. It's a age-old medication again for constipation. In case number one, we can of course use liquid paraffin as alternative to bulk laxatives. So functional constipation, bulk laxatives. If not, Docusets, if not liquid paraffin, you can use any of the combinations. You can want to have patients on bulk laxative as well as Docusets. You can prescribe a patient bulk laxatives plus liquid paraffin, not an issue. But when it comes to case number two, where there is an anal issue, we talked about the obese executive with the anal fissure. Now you don't want to use a liquid paraffin in this condition because it will try to I mean it has problems when it comes to, it will inhibit the wound healing of anal fissure. So any anal conditions, please try to avoid a liquid paraffin because it will try to inhibit the wound healing process. Around 2 to 3 tablespoons per day are what is required, around 15 ml or something of that sort, and 2 to 3 days will be required for full action to come. So that's about liquid paraffin till now. It's also a kind of lubricant, plus it's a laxative because it's milder in action. So it'll try to form a coat around the hard stools and will try to prevent also any injuries when it passing through the anus. But anyway, on the other side, it will try to cause problems by inhibiting the wound healing of anal fissure and so on. One more point which I remember now, maybe of importance, is it will also cause aspiration. If you try to give it in small kids or elderly, maybe liquid paraffin gets into the lungs, aspiration pneumonia can occur, but that's in the extreme conditions when persons may be unconscious or unknowingly the liquid paraffin gets into the respiratory tract. Now that can be an issue of aspiration pneumonia, not otherwise in normal healthy adult individuals. Right, so that was about stool softener liquid paraffin. So once you know that for functional constipation we have bulk laxatives, alternative can be a stool softener like Docuset with detergent action, or liquid paraffin which has more of lubricant action. You can try any of this or can combine any of this. The third case is about a 60-year-old female who suffers from anterolateral myocardial infarction. So there is a myocardial infarction MI for this individual. On discharge from hospital, she was prescribed a CCB. Of course, calcium channel blockers are prescribed as a normal rule for these people, as one of the drugs. She was prescribed lactulose to prevent any straining and avoid constipation, because you're always worried for this MI patients. You don't want the pressures to go up, especially when the person is defecating, especially since the Asian style of squatting position, when you want to defecate, it becomes a problem because there's a lot of pressure exerted. Of course you want to give some drug which can help in easing the straining associated with constipation, especially post MI. So she was advised lifestyle modification with a lot of vegetable diet intake, of course, but along with that she was also prescribed a drug called as lactulose. We will come to this drug. Now this is a drug which will help in evacuation of the bowel, especially with less straining, and will avoid constipation for these individuals. The case number 4 is for a 20-year-old man who was operated for left-sided inguinal hernia. So he's kind of post-operative individual. Post-operative case, he was administered local anesthesia for the operation. Post-operative period was uneventful. He complained of constipation on the second day of surgery. Okay, so it's post-operative. Operation consists of inhalation of anesthetic drugs, a bedridden patient for some time, nil by mouth, a lot of stress factors. So these all things, inability to move and so on. So these all factors can lead to constipation, acute short-term constipations post-operatively. He requires medication for his constipation, of course. So there is 2 cases. One case happens to be of MI, myocardial infarction, heart attack, and then you want to give some drugs to avoid constipation. The second case is for a post-operative person who has suffered from constipation. Case number 5 is a 25-year-old female who has become pregnant for the first time. Of course, pregnancy is a period when there are a lot of burst of hormones within the body, especially progesterone, that leads to relaxation and can lead to constipation. So constipation within pregnancy is a very common thing to be seen, and she requires, of course, treatment for this. So you want to give some drug which is milder in action. So here is what is prescribed is lactulose. You shouldn't be giving any stimulants like bisacodyl for these agents, especially third trimester, because they increase peristalsis of the intestine. So they also have the ability to induce contractions of the uterus on other side. So maybe you want to avoid this But if you want to at all give it, give in small doses for very short times during pregnancy. So pregnancy associated constipation, again use of lactulose. Case 6 is for a 4-month infant who suffers from constipation. So it's a 4-month-old infant who suffered from constipation. Of course, you want to look at non-pharmacological methods of treatment, especially if the child is taking powdered milk. Then you want to look at whether you are adding more amount of milk, more amount of water to it or less of water to it. Are you making the formula correctly? You also want to give the child water intake in between the feeds, so that will help in relieving the constipation. You want to also see at other things, especially trying to move the baby's legs in a cyclical position, so that can help the individual to evacuate the bowels. So that is what is done non-pharmacologically mostly. But if you want to use any drug, then maybe lactulose or any other osmotic drugs will come to these drugs for constipation. Of course, the best method would be, if there is acute constipation, you want to give the patient glycerin suppository. I will come to the glycerin suppository once again. Or you want to also give a mini enema which has immediate effect, 15, 20, 30 minutes there would be evacuation of the bowel, because usually infants will cry if they have constipation. So the moment you relieve constipation, they will be like sleeping for nicely for a few hours to come. So it's very important, especially abdominal pain can also come up if the patient, if the infant is having constipation. Especially it's all functional, but then again sometimes you also need to look at pathological causes for constipation in a child, but that's again a separate issue, need not talk about that. So for functional constipation in a small child, you would like to use a few drugs along with non-pharmacological methods that of course are important before giving drugs. The next case number 7, is a 7-year-old boy who suffers from constipation. Non-pharmacological methods would be, you want to train this person if he is not trained well for, toilet training is important. Time and conflict management should also be addressed. That's also psychologically also, now it comes to my mind, psychological issues, insecurity, conflicts with phobia for closed spaces needs to be seen. Lifestyle management, of course, less of fatty food, especially fast food, more of I should say home cooked high fiber diet. If at all he requires drugs, you need to, for short-term constipation, functional constipation, again you need to give glycerin suppositories or mini enema. If at all drugs are required, then lactulose or osmotic drugs for constipation. You need to avoid stimulants for these individuals unless they are needed. So try to avoid stimulants in all these cases. So a lot of cases we have seen, starting from MI, then going up to post-operative cases, constipation. The next was about a pregnancy associated constipation. Case 6 happens to be for a small child with constipation, infant with constipation. And of course, case 7 is about a child suffering from constipation and so on. So there are a lot of issues which needs to be tackled as far as drugs are concerned. A few drugs also we have seen when we have come across these cases. Now, a few details of these drugs. Evacuation enema, of course, there is a picture there up, or you can take it on your own. Not you, patients can take it on your own. If you require, that's another story. Of course, yes, increase physical bulk, because you're trying to deliver water into the colon, so that increases the physical bulk inside the bowel, that itself induces movements and evacuation occurs. It's a very the action occurs immediately. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, more than enough for a person to free himself from constipation. It is safe in elderly and newborn. Anal conditions are of course a contraindication, and of course even obstruction is a contraindication for use of enema. Too much use should be avoided because it can lead to abuse. We also have OTC products of mini enema, where we have bulbs which are filled with fluid, and we can of course take that if required, or give it to the individuals if required. Education of procedure is required for the individuals if they want to take enema on a regular basis. It is best for functional constipation, bedridden and post-operative treatment of choice except bowel pathologies and surgeries. Okay, so it becomes for bedridden individuals, it is one of the best things to be done. Post-operative cases, choice, right? Short-term constipation, why not give enema? But if there is some bowel pathologies or surgeries, maybe you want to avoid enema in those conditions. But otherwise, it's one of the best procedures to be followed when it comes to uh, treatment of constipation for these individuals. Osmotic agents, yeah, osmotic agents. We learn about magnesium salts. So magnesium salts are osmotic. So the osmotic behavior itself will try to retain and pull water in intestinal lumen, as well as they also release neurotransmitters for faster peristalsis. So especially we are talking of acetylcholine and so on. So they release it to a minor extent, which can help in more of peristalsis and evacuation of the bowel. So we need to take it of around 30 to 60 ml. A lot of magnesium salts are available: magnesium sulfate, magnesium hydroxide, which can be used as osmotic agents. Now remember, their action would be coming in around 3 to 6 hours. You can of course breastfeed, lactate. It can be used in pregnancy also to extent. But chronic renal failure is a no for intake of any heavy metals. So we usually do not advise osmotic agents, antacids during CRF, that is chronic renal or renal failure in general. So try to avoid them, or you need to look at other parameters before starting this agent. We can definitely use osmotic agents in post-operative cases. We can use it in pregnancy, and so on. So we can of course use them in cases 3 and 4. I think the third case was about post-operative individual, pregnancy cases, even infants. We can be using osmotic agents as drugs for constipation. Going forward with osmotic agents, we have lactulose, gold standard one, which is used. It's a disaccharide sugar. It is reduced to metabolites which are acidic in nature, which try to retain and pull water in the intestine because of its osmotic properties. It helps in formation of soft watery stools. Action comes in a few hours. Now one more important use of lactulose, which is not there with magnesium, is that we also try to give it for treatment on prevention of encephalopathy, especially for prevention and treatment of this condition. The reason being, it tries to reduce synthesis and absorption of ammonia from the intestine by ionizing it. So it tries to ionize the ammonia, so less of absorption, more charge the molecule will be having. We have already seen it. Again, if you are new to this channel, you want to watch my lectures on absorption of substances. So more the charge, less of absorption that occurs in the bloodstream. So you try to give lactulose as one of the agents for encephalopathy. Of course, a few other side effects of these drugs would be flatulence, abdominal cramp, diarrhea, electrolyte imbalance, as hypokalemia can occur if you are giving it over and above the dose. Dose of around 10 to 15 milligrams grams or 10 to 15 ml as per the availability of. I think it's available mostly as liquid formulation, so ml should fit as far as the condition is concerned. It has to be taken 2 times a day, and action will come say around a few hours. So 6 to 8 hours the action should be coming for lactulose. So this drug is a good drug for most of the cases that we have seen. So this is my P drug for patients who require drugs for constipation post-operatively apart from enema. For patients suffering from mitral infarction with less training, you can give lactulose. Pregnancy, of course, lactulose is one of the good agents that can be given. For child suffering from constipation, lactulose is good. Infant suffering from constipation, if at all drug has to be given, lactulose can be used. So this becomes a drug of choice in most of the cases of constipation that we have seen. But sometimes lactulose requires a few hours to act. So if you want to give it for a child or for acute short-term constipation, you can also try alternative with glycerin suppository. Glycerin also helps, it acts in the same way, osmotic agents. Very safe and acceptable for intermittent basis, particularly in infants. So, child suffering from constipation, a suppository of glycerin should help. It's also another OTC product, so you can get it from the market directly. Just try to insert one suppository, and action could come within 10 to 15 minutes. The max would be around 30 minutes. So that's the doses in which it is available: 0.5 grams, 1 gram, 3 gram, depending upon the weight, age. You can decide which one to be used, and it's quite user friendly. And just try to insert one, and should be okay in most of the cases of functional constipation, especially with the kids. Now we come to case number 7, slightly different from the earlier. So here is not a very classical case of constipation, but still we require to give a few drugs. So here is 30-year-old man who was told to do a barium for swallow and follow through. So you require this procedure for noting a lot of abdominal issues. An abdominal X-ray of this kind needs to be taken. So barium happens to be a radio opaque substance, so you can visualize the intestine by doing this. On the night before the X-ray procedure, he was given light dinner and a purgative tablet for bowel and gas expulsion. So I hope you are all medical students, or at least paramedical students, or people involved in this subject. So for good abdominal X-ray, you do not want a lot of gas shadows to come, because gas shadows are opaque and they try to the pathologies may not be seen clearly if there's a lot of gas shadows seen on X-ray. So for good abdominal preparation for X-ray, you need to give patient a substance which can drive out of course feces as well as gas from the intestine. So a day before the procedure, he was given a purgative tablet. So that purgative tablet happens to be a stimulant. Now remember, here it comes the first time stimulant agent. His X-ray was taken next day and observed to have less gas shadows, and pathology of the intestine was located and was diagnosed easily. Okay, right. So here is a stimulant purgative. A purgative, of course, as I informed to you, has a very strong action. So bisacodyl is one of the agents that is being used for these conditions, 5 to 10 milligrams per day. Oral tablets are available of bisacodyl. I think now suppositories are also available as bisacodyl. They are irritant in nature, so they will irritate the intestinal mucosa. They stimulate the mucosal nerve plexus of the colon and the myenteric plexus. They stimulate prostaglandin synthesis in the intestine. They inhibit sodium potassium pump in the intestinal crypt cells, and more sodium retention within the lumen. More sodium retention, more water retention in the lumen. The increased production of cyclic AMP and therefore increased secretions from the cells of the intestine. A long-term use may cause damage to the crypts. So you see all these actions, it relates to they are secreting, they are increasing peristalsis, they are inhibiting absorption. So they are trying to be very hard with the intestine, especially when the action is supposed to come, especially of retaining water inside the intestine and trying to throw it away along with the feces. Especially when it comes to constipation. So you don't expect to have well-formed stools after given stimulant, but what you get is watery, forceful evacuation, something like a diarrhea that might occur if you take these drugs. The action will come around 6 to 8 hours. As I informed you, suppositories would be much faster in action, with action coming just within a few minutes or hour maximum. Electrolyte imbalances like hypokalemia, cramps in abdomen are of course seen because they are stimulant. More peristalsis, cramp, pain will come. Do not use them generally do not use them in pregnancy, especially last trimester. If you want to use low dose short term, that's what is the thing. You do not want to use them during lactation. You can pass to the infant and he or she can have diarrhea. Bowel conditions, recent abdominal surgeries, because they are stimulant in action, so do not want to use them for this because they can disrupt the entire pathology or the surgery what is done, right? So these are a few contraindications for its use when it comes to stimulant purgative, but short term use is of course guaranteed in a few conditions. and the best happens to be for taking abdominal x-rays. So before that, you want to give this thing to the individual. For acute constipation, we want to treat and diagnose the primary cause, if at all, if it is there. Not all acute constipation are functional in origin. There can be a pathology behind it, so try to find out. Time and episodes of constipation, abdominal pain, weight loss, age of the individual, if he has any addictions, passage of wind, any diarrhea are few relevant questions you want to ask to the individual when you want to treat acute constipation. Generally, what I will do is, if at all patient comes with acute constipation, glycerin suppository, enema, it can be two things which can go hand in hand for relieving patients of acute constipation. But on a longer term, for maintenance or for kind of normalizing it, I will be using magnesium salts, or lactulose also can be a good agent. So some osmotic agent can be used. Of course, bisacodyl is alternative to glycerin and enema. If they are contraindicated, I can be using a stimulant agent like bisacodyl for acute constipation. When it comes to chronic constipation, most commonly occurs in bedridden and geriatric individuals. You want to rule out any psychiatric problem, anal and intestinal pathologies if the patient is having chronic constipation before giving any drug for this patient. So the best is you want to give bulk laxative, of course, because it's lifestyle modification. Lactulose, of course, is given. There is a drug called as stegaceroid, which is a new agent, relatively new agent, which is a serotonin agonist. So it causes an increase in local levels of acetylcholine within the myelin plexus of the intestine, so helps in increase peristalsis. So it's one of the good agents to be used nowadays for patients with irritable bowel syndrome along with other drugs. So new drug, but limited to use for chronic constipation, especially IBS, and the mechanism I already informed to you. Stimulants can be given if there is acute or chronic case. So patient suffers from many episodes of constipation, but if the constipation goes beyond and levels where there's some somatic complaints from the patient, then of course you want to use a stimulant. You want to look at the risk and the benefits and then want to use it, but only use it for short terms. Enema and suppositories are also alternative to stimulants in acute episodes. Of course, the long term would be lifestyle modification. You need to be aware about purgative abuse and malabsorption. Purgatives, the stimulant laxatives that we talked of, if you're using it on a long term basis, can give rise to abuse. It can be a substance of abuse, especially when you talk of small kids. The caregivers might want to give them more than what is required on a daily basis, and it can be a substance of abuse. So know this thing, the general concept when you learn about anti drugs for constipation. Of course, malabsorption, because a few stimulants can give rise to crib damage. So if you are taking it for a long time, especially with chronic constipation, you're also worried about malabsorption. We also seen malabsorption with liquid paraffin. If you're taking it for a very long time, especially with lipid soluble agents. There are a lot of herbal medications which are promoted in this part of the world for constipation. So they might contain substances which are not good for health. So need to be aware that as a doctor, try to avoid any herbal medications for chronic constipation. The best non-pharmacological method would be enema, and that should be enough. I think we should be educating the patients not to rely on those OTC herbal medications for when it comes to treatment of chronic constipation. There are few miscellaneous drugs which are not used, so a few people might find it interesting just to know about them. I just tried to cover it up to make this presentation complete. So castor oil, which is a known purgative, a very strong purgative, potent purgative, which is used for ages for constipation. It's converted into an active metabolite. It's an acidic metabolite that causes a lot of water retention in the intestines, stimulation of intestinal peristalsis, inhibition, absorption of fluid. So these are all the actions. Very potent one. It's irritant in action. It causes watery diarrhea. It can be a substance of abuse. you want to use it for some other person and abuse it to a level where the person can suffer from some problems, but it is hardly used in therapeutics nowadays. We have Senna, which is one more purgative. In fact, phenolphthalein is also there, but we do not use this drug. So anyway, this drug, which is a purgative, is converted to active metabolite by colonic bacteria. Again, it's irritant in action. So look at these stimulant purgatives we do not use except for bisacodyl. These are stimulant to myenteric plexus. Absorption of water and sodium is decreased. Watery stool formation, complete evacuation. These all things remain the same when you talk of purgatives in general. The full action comes in about 8 hours. They are excreted in bile, so may and also go enterohepatic circulation. If you are taking Senna for a very long time, pigmentation of the colon is a big issue. So need to be aware of these things when you talk about these drugs, stimulant purgatives, especially Senna. So that was all from my side as far as drugs for constipation are concerned. I hope you like my session. A lot of cases I have tried to describe and then relate it with the drugs. So thank you and do subscribe. Bye for now.